And welcome back to GSA, everyone. Sorry about that delay due to that cancellation, but we're back with our Celeste Any% League. We've got a match between Psyched and Scrublord. I am Electric, and here co-commenting with me is Espel. How are you doing today, man? How are you feeling about this race?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I was commentating some yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about this one and its sort of impact on playoffs in the league and everything. Because right now, with the point system and everything, the top eight get in, and Moose is eighth with 14 points, and then these two are ninth and 10th. We've got Scrublord with 12 points and Psyched with 11. So hypothetically, either of them could jump Moose and take that eighth playoff spot. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what happens with this race and who ultimately ends up with that eighth position.
Yep. And what we're kind of looking at based on the point system is if Scrublord wins, then he's going to bump Moose down and take that eighth spot. But Psyched is going to have to win all three of these races to accumulate the 4 points needed to bump Moose. So if Psyched wins only by 2 races, that will actually leave him in a tie point-wise with Moose. So definitely a bit more on the line in all three of these races for Psyched as these guys getting off to a start in this little intro section. Pretty consistent basic movement here. Unfortunately, no dash ability until the very end. So
yeah, and both of these runners really, really good. Obviously, Psyched PB'd probably about a month ago at the big Twitch Rivals event. And that was his big sub 29 that he got. And so he's way up there. And then Scrublord, it's been a little bit for him. But he's still obviously really good. He has the, not particularly important for this, but it's interesting to see the Ridge IL record. He's got a couple fancy auto scroller skips in there that's interesting to see.
Oh, and Scrublord already taking a death due to not being able to get beside that platform. That's a pretty unfortunate start. And also, someone in chat asking what's with the name. Not sure if you're talking about the file name or my username, but the file name is that way to prevent just replaying a basic video. It's a form of cheat prevention for this game.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's effective for I think what we need and everything. Ideally, nobody would in general, but you never know. And unfortunately, you can't completely trust people in general. So it's a solid method for doing it.
Yep. And fortunately, Scrublord looks like he's overall recovered from that early death, but still lagging a fair bit behind. You really don't want to see anyone with a deficit like that leaving the old site.
Yeah, and it's, you know, for a death, it's really not too bad, and you can see just a couple seconds difference there. Someone in chat asking what's wrong with your name.
Well, you see, I came up with this username as a 12-year-old that did not know how electric was spelled, and I used it for so long that it got ingrained in my head. So if I write it the proper way, it looks weird to me. So
honestly, my brain just processed it as electric spelled correctly. I'm just now noticing, looking at it for the first time, that it is electric. Wait, no, that is correct. What am I saying? Ignore me. Yeah, you did a great job spelling it.
Oh yeah, my bad. Sorry, getting the name of that stage wrong. I don't. As soon as I said old site, I knew it was likely wrong. But old site is where we, of course, see all the dream block dash tech, which is to me one of the coolest bits of movement throughout the entire game.
It is.
Ooh, and Psyched almost getting bashed by Battle in there, just barely not actually able to go through that dream block. Certainly a bit of a Monka moment there. And so the Scrublord able to make up at least a little bit of time through the battle and chase here.
Dream block's definitely my favorite mechanic. They just feel good. They've got a good visual sound effect when you go through them, and it's nice.
Yep.
As we see Psyched finishing up this last big room here of the chase sequence, he gets through it no problem.
Yeah, and just watching the pretty precise routing to make sure that battling isn't in your way. It's certainly, I really love old sites movement. There's so much that it's a very technical stage, but when it's well executed, it just looks so smooth and fluid.
It
And
really.
now, of course, Psyched waking up from that dream sequence, about to close out the level and go ahead and move on to Resort.
We're at the awake sequence here, which is one of these areas that looks innocent, but is actually home to some of the most difficult technical stuff that you can do. Hypothetically, you could gain close to infinite speed. If you watch the tasks, you can see it just absolutely fly through here. And so it's just a matter of trying to chain your ultras together and hit all these precise corner boosts and everything. And it's so easy to just mess up one little thing and lose all that speed. But you saw both of them do a pretty solid job there through the awake section.
Yeah, and that's really the general theme through this game, is just using as many of those different boost techs as you can, as much as you can, to increase Madeline's speed as much as possible and maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, you really just want to, it's just every little thing that you can see from every screen, you know, down every single one and decide, okay, is, because we have, I mean, it's only 3 buttons, but there are a lot of different options for movement between dash jumps and hypers and ultras and dash cancels and all these different things. And so it's figuring out, you know, exactly which one is you most comfortable with in each situation.
Oh, Scrublord taking a lead now, though. Double death with sight from the mold there. Apologies for interrupting, but that's pretty significant. I mean, just remember, after that Forsaken City mistake, Scrublord was a decent amount of time behind, and so to make all of that up over just a couple of mistakes from sight.
Yeah, he was definitely a few seconds behind, and now I mean, that's all it takes, really, is just a couple of deaths there. And what's definitely a difficult screen, although not when you see people at this level mess up too often, as they're both entering the huge mess section here. Something I always have difficulty saying.
Yep, and as much difficulty as it is being said, just actually executing throughout all of those tight corners and such, and both these guys making it look easy. Scrublord, though, taking... Oh, wow, Psyched getting a lead for about a second there due to that death from Scrublord before he actually took the same one. Wow.
Yeah.
So Resort really not treating these guys well at the moment. Scrublord going to go ahead and be the first to clean up the crates. Kind of interesting how you're able to do these 3 little sections in whatever order you want, and it has that really neat effect on that main mess room.
Yeah, on the main mess room, and also on each of the just random screens in each section, because you can see like the books and the towels and the crates in each room. So depending on how you do it, it affects each individual room as well.
Yeah, just stellar game design, honestly. And especially the crystal heart that you could see through that section that Psyched was just in. The way that it's hidden is really clever, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in this, we're really only seeing one way that people go, and that's sort of just having figured out what sort of the optimal route is. In ARB, the All Red Berries category, they do actually go a different route now. And that's because there is a sort of, I don't know if it's a glitch or an exploit or whatever you want to call it, that allows you to warp through where the heart is to just sort of the room above it, and so skip a lot of screens.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so...
sorry, Scrublord did end up taking a small death there, so he is now back in second place at the moment, but only by a couple of seconds. These guys really, really close together ultimately. And in fact, looking at the timers specifically, it is a little bit difficult to kind of identify. Okay, both of them getting that demo dash first try. Very nice. No significant time loss there. And thankfully, it looked like they both took the checkpoint too, so if they didn't get that first try, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But yeah, so
yeah, as we see some really nice syncing here coming up to Oshiro. It's been just so close the entire time so far.
I see someone in chat pointing out Sykes just took a while with the setup and taking a death from the Oshiro. That's, you don't usually see Oshiro causing a lot of problems during the chase. Just really kind of a messy resort generally from both players, but you do have to appreciate that they're making about the same tier and quantity of mistakes, so it's by no means any sort of one-sided race.
Yeah, for sure. But both, like you said, playing a little sloppy, and so either one might feel at this point that they could definitely be behind.
Yep. And Scrublord going to be finishing out.
Madeline, hiding like crazy from Oshiro there on Psych's screen, manages to duck behind him right at the end. That would have been a really painful death, but thankfully he's able to save that and just stay neck and neck with Scrublord.
Yep. Based on the timers closing out Chapter 3, Psych is about 5 seconds behind, so certainly nowhere near an insurmountable deficit.
Oh. As Psyched manages to go upright in that bubble, I guess just hitting buttons a little too fast.
Yep, the bubbles can be a tad unforgiving if the directions just don't quite work out properly. That's especially, you have to either have good control over the arrow keys on the keyboard or be playing with the controller with a decent D-pad. It's games like this that really reveal to you just how bad some companies are at making D-pads.
Yeah. As we see neither of them take the Archie here. And there is, keep in mind, a lot of people do run with analog. It is certainly a reasonable way to run this game. So anyone out there looking to run analog, go for it. But certainly, yeah, I know there's plenty of complaints about like the Switch D-pads, especially with the Joy-Con and everything. It really does expose that, like you said.
Yep. And I the biggest one for me was the Pro Controller D-pad. Man, I would get so many misdirections on that.
I can imagine. I mean, always, feel free. Try the analog there.
Okay, so okay. Yeah, Psyched. With that slightly worrisome movement for just a moment there. Golden Ridge just generally, because of those wind mechanics, it's pretty tricky at times.
Oh, for sure. And one of the nice things about speedrunning it is that casually, I know for me, it was such a pain to go through and deal with the wind. And with speedrunning it, you can sort of control where you're going to be and what the wind's doing a little bit more. Certainly, you're still at its mercy. But as we see some nice syncing going on here. But it is nice to be able to do that.
Yep. And someone in chat asking if I am qualified to talk about Celeste. I would hope so. I do have my degree in Celestology.
Yeah, it is that guy. As we see Scrublord with he's got his own sort of like ridge strats. They're a little different from what I usually see from people. As we can see also like not taking the ultra there on that second to last screen. But they're both so Scrublord, they look very close. Scrublord with the timer like 4 or 5 seconds ahead. As we enter into Temple. And so one of the questions that we always get from people whenever this is going on is that why do we do 5B? You'll see people getting the tape and then quitting out and going into 5B. And the reason for that, for anyone who doesn't know, is that completing a B side of a chapter unlocks the A side of the next chapter. And chapter 5 is one of the only ones, chapter 6 a little bit. But chapter 5, it's significantly faster to get the tape and then complete the B side than it is to just complete the whole A side. And a major reason for that is that chapter 5 is a very non-linear chapter as compared to the other ones. And so, as we'll see with Bub's Drop later on, there's a whole lot of 5B that you can just straight up skip.
Yep. And speaking of the nice little movement tech, both these guys getting a pretty decent yeet overall.
Yeah, more or less. Modest yeet.
Yeah, probably just the yeet part of it, not quite the ET.
Yeah, if you were to post like the emote, you'd just essentially do the first one.
It's that is such a quality emote. Gotta shout outs to Teach for that emote.
It
as
is.
we
It's
start
good.
as we start Mirror Temple side B.
As they're both still, I mean, like, and the resort was pretty sloppy, but like both of them have like been being really close because they're not making that many mistakes or anything. It's been solid play so far outside of a lot of resort.
Yep, and like especially as we can see here, ooh, Scrublord taking that death, and we did resynchronize these guys before they entered Mirror B.
Missed Bub's drop there from Psych.
That's gonna cost them a decent
And from
amount of time.
Scrublord. All right.
Oh wow, okay.
Maybe they will sync up with their numbers of Bub's drops missed as well. As
Okay.
second try.
Yeah. For those that don't understand exactly how that works, the way that Celeste registers where it should start you off from after a death, that particular loading zone that you perform Bub's drop in, you're never meant to re-enter from there. So it's not actually one that you can respawn from at death. And so because of that, when you execute Bub's drop, it just assumes that the other entrance that you end up respawning at was the one that you came in through and died at. It's kind of an interesting little quirk with that like sort of checkpointing system, and probably one of the weirder things in the game, but it's technically not really glitchy, more so than it is just like exploiting the way the checkpoint system works.
Yeah, and that thing that I was mentioning in chapter 3 with the huge mess is the same thing, where the game assumes that when you're in that heart screen and you're quitting out, if you were in there, that basically it's going to put you up top and not like down in the bottom of the heart screen. I'm not explaining this well, but anyways, they're both here in the temple section, both still incredibly close to each other, actually.
Oh, Scrublord taking that pretty significant death on one of the
Scrublord
longer
takes it,
rooms.
But they both managed to miss Bub's drop the same number of times, which has allowed them to stay pretty close here. Bub's drop like a 12-second loss if you miss it.
Yeah, they're definitely kind of answering each other's mistakes in a way.
Yeah. As we see this, ooh, that was a solid save from Psych there. He gets through the gauntlet.
Yeah, that whole Seeker section is just such a monka.
It is scary to, ooh.
Yeah, Scrublord dropping Theo. They're not able to actually continue on with the room, as Psych is finished up with 5B now. Let's see how much of a delay Scrublord ends up having to take as a result.
He casually walks into the final screen here of 5B.
Yeah, so about 12, 13 seconds behind, give or take, closing off 5B. So still a close race, especially with what's coming up. We're really only about halfway through the run, and there's some pretty difficult movement tech still coming up. So lots of room for lots of lead changes ultimately.
Oh, definitely. As we say that, Psyched hits his leg skip first try. That is definitely one of the difficult movement techs in the game, but he gets it no problem.
And you gotta love that movement with those bear blocks there, doing those hypers and preserving that upwards momentum to just do some really cool movement to get through some of these tight cornering sections.
Yeah, and they sound great too. As we'll see, this is one of the nicer, I think, Heaven block, bear block screens there. A lot of people do an ultra there now. Psyched opting for more the just dash jumping strat, but he gets through it no problem.
That's always what you love to see there.
And so we've got a little bit of the timer desync, so they don't look as close as they were before, but they are still, I believe, pretty close. It should be still like the 10-ish, 12 seconds or so that it was before.
Yeah, just really solid movement through this whole section in Reflection. This is just beautiful movement to see. And but I say that, and then Psych taking that death after the bumper there. Those bumpers can just be so tricky, honestly.
Yeah, they definitely can. Especially they like to just wiggle around and move a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like each of the like main directions and diagonals have a little bit of leeway, but knowing that if you try to exploit that and you just go a little bit too far off of one of those main directions, you could just be sent flying in a completely different direction than what you're ever expecting.
Oh yeah, and then it is always fun to watch people try and save that when it does happen, but it is really frustrating to have it happen to you. As Psyched falling through the ravine here. You could tell, especially because he didn't hold down there, that he was a little nervous. He was a little far to the right of that bumper, and so he didn't get as much distance over as he wanted, but he was able to adjust himself really nicely and not die, which is good, because that would have been a really costly death net.
Yep, and Scrublord still pretty close behind.
As he gets through the ravine too, no problem, and we get to the battle line fight here with the nice hey-yas in the background.
Hey. Gotta love the OST to this game, honestly.
Yeah, that was really beautiful.
I try.
I will not be trying. So you can see they both get the battle line boost successfully and are here at the section. Nothing too, like the battle line fight, I feel like, unless I'm misremembering something, there haven't been any like major changes to it or anything like that recently. It's been more or less, I guess we do like this screen that Sykes here now. We won't quite get to show it off because he hit the feather on accident. But there's some ultras there as he takes a death. But more or less, it's been largely the same for some time.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense with it being a fairly linear movement section overall. It's not like there's anything that you're really like made to backtrack through, like some of the sections in Mirror Temple and such. But it's still one of those things that on occasion little things can go wrong that can start stacking up progressively.
Oh yeah, there's definitely plenty, especially with some of these. Like I was about to say, that one right there that Psych just died on, which is a rough death. That reverse ultra is not easy at all. As he manages to get through the second time, and that can be really costly. And that should allow Scrublord. He might be more or less caught up at this point.
Let's see when that first text box appears, because it appeared at 44. Yeah, so it appeared about 47, so only 3 seconds behind, actually.
All right. So Scrublord able to capitalize on some of these mistakes. They fly on through.
Nice little tunneling movement and such. This fight does just feel so long when you're playing casually, though.
I definitely, because I enjoy watching people play casually, and it's always like, wait, okay, so I'm enjoying this, but there's another screen of it, and okay, there's another one, and another one.
Another one. Another one.
Keep going.
It really does. And Psyched now with that first of one level up throughout the entire game.
Okay, Scrublord. Oh no, he had done a really nice job saving himself on this screen. Going up above the feather, and then right at the end, he just messes up his jump. Takes a huge death.
Yeah, one of the longest rooms, if not the longest in the chase.
So we're gonna see Psyched is at eventually we will find out.
Yeah,
so
about 21 flat.
Exactly. So this is gonna be like a 20 to 30.
I would
about 20-second lead for Psyched.
Yep, that's what it looks like. That is pretty insane.
Just from that one, I mean, that wasn't all of it, but that was a major part of it. Just that one death right at the perfectly wrong spot.
Yeah, I mean, as with any game with room setups like this, you really never want to take anything close to a death in a long room like that.
Yeah, there are a few that can just really, I think compared to other games, there are some that can definitely have way worse deaths, which is one of the things I like about this game. But that long room there, the long one here at the end of 2500, if you take a death there, especially at this level, I mean, you're not getting a PB. It can really ruin your chance at winning one of these races. Those screens are tough. As we see, I think both Psyched and Scrublord die. Oh, okay. What's up, Sam? At pretty much the exact same part in 0 meters there, which, I mean, those spikes can be really frustrating.
And especially like having to, I don't think that was quite the case there, but having to deal with spike jumps in different spots, like spikes can really be the bane of any Celeste runner's existence.
Yeah, it's when they just have those one little ones right there that you just have to, try and perfectly get over. It can be really difficult, especially because, with the spikes, if you're going away from them, you won't get hit by them. So you want to use that to your advantage, but at the same time, if you accidentally make it so that at any point in time you are moving in their direction, I guess what I'm trying to say is we allow ourselves to get really, really close to the spikes because of how they work. And that's another bad death from Scrublord there. But so if you mess it up, it can be really easy to hit the spikes and die. Okay, well, this is we're gonna need to see Psyched get about 2 of those 2500 meter deaths at this point.
Yeah, something like that. Psyched definitely pulling off some pretty great stuff. Now, it is worth mentioning, though, that despite Psyched doing so well, according to the stat sheet, Summit is actually his worst chapter. So, it may just be that he's kind of saving some of the spaghetti for later on, or could just be that this is one of the more consistent ones. Maybe he put a pretty healthy amount of practice time in on it. So, who knows?
Yeah, he's looked good so far. Is that like compared to everyone else?
So that is his. Let me pull up the exact note. So his average on Summit is worse than every other player's average, and by more of a margin than any of his other chapters, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, Flare Bear also, his worst chapter was labeled as Summit. We actually have Moose, Scrublord, and Tej all saying that Temple A is their worst chapter. So it's kind of interesting there.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, so far he had that one death at the end of 1500, but it's been looking pretty smooth.
And Psyched having a little bit of a weird issue with that cloud earlier on in the Golden Ridge section. Scrublord making some quick work of the resort section. Always glad to see them make it through that last little section first try with the purple orbs, because taking a death, especially on like the very end, is just so costly.
Yeah, well, and that's what we saw with Scrublord with the 500 meters. And that was definitely rough for him. as we're coming up here on, I didn't see from Psych. Did he do the just the regular auto scroller skip or the skip or? I'm guessing the other one. Ooh, Scrublord, you could technically have saved that, but he was not to, and is just gonna try it again.
Yeah, I didn't actually notice how exactly the auto scroller went for Psyched there.
Okay. Someone's saying in chat he did the regular auto scroller skip, as they both choose to, and that's fine.
What is the difference between them?
So the regular auto scroller skip is what you saw from like Psyched and Scrublord there, and then the skip, or bounding under the train, as some call it, is basically you ignore that movement block altogether, and you just jump through the whole. There's on the ground of the screen, there's just a few small places. There's like one tiny one where you can get your dash back, and another one that you can grab onto, and so you just go through the whole screen on the bottom, just without the movement block at all.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, and we don't see everybody go for it, but it saves a decent amount of time, a few seconds at least.
And we did see a nice door skip from Psyched just there, so
that's always important. Yeah. And he doesn't mess up at the end of 2,500 meters, so it's looking good for him.
Yep, taking home this first win, but remember, if he wants to secure that 8th place spot, he does have to pull off 2 more wins rather than just 1. And so Scrublord is still in a position where he could also take that 8th place spot if things just don't go very well for Psyched in this next race or the last one.
Yeah, so stick around, people.
Nice door skip from Scrublord as well.
Oh, Psyched with the nice save there through this downdraft section. There have been a lot of, I don't know, like optimizations recently, I think, with the downdraft section where you'll see some of that movement. If you look just like a month ago, a lot of it's quite different. But it looks really nice now. A lot of it is just smooth. It's difficult to deal with the wind, but we've really managed to sort of power through it.
Yep. And Psyched taking a death right there. Scrublord obviously still has an insane amount of ground to make up if he wants to pull out this win, but Psyched is letting him come at least a tad closer to that.
Yeah, as we see no issues there at the end of 14, which is one of the longer flags. Psyched now just needs to not completely mess everything up. As I say that, he only messes one thing up, so that's good.
Was gonna say a bit easier said than done, but
yeah.
Okay,
so
he's
messed 2 things up.
Please don't make it 3. Please don't make it 3.
You know, if he wants to make it 3, it's, it's not a huge deal. As he comes up here, flag 5, flag 4, it's no problem.
I'm getting real close to that ending. 3.
And so we'll see him getting really close to 30 minutes. No sub 30, but right around that range. So
very low 30.
Super happy with that, but he'll be happy with the win.
And that's really all that should matter to him at the moment. And a nice cheeky 30.05.
Yeah, as we see Scrublord pass that up on his screen. So that'll be a win for Psych.
Very nice on Sykes' end. And Scrublord really not too far behind ultimately.
No, I mean, it was really, so it's not quite going to be just these two, but if you look at his death at the end of Reflection and then his death at the end of 500 meters, that's just like a huge part of it right there, if we're looking at like a 30-ish second difference.
Yeah, and that's kind of unfortunate to think about. Well, Scrublord finishing out race number 1 with a 30-36. As these guys are about to go ahead and prep for match 2.
Yeah, they're a little warmed up now. Maybe we'll see some subs in the next one. Someone asking in the chat, is this best out of 3? Definitely one of the other common questions asked. So this is, we play 3 races no matter what, and then you get points based off of that. So each race that you win, you get 1 point, and then if you win the 2 out of the 3 races, basically, either 2 or 3, you get a bonus point. So if you win 3 races, you get 4 points. If you win 2 races, you get 3 points, should be how it works. If you win 1, you get 1 point, 0 point. And so the way those points work, they go to your overall point standings. The top 8 out of these 12 people then make the playoffs. And so basically right now, this is getting right towards the end. Moose has 14 points and is in the 8th spot. He's not playing right now. Scrublord has 12 and Psyched has 11. So with that win, Psyched moves up to 12. And he will want to ideally take both. I honestly don't know what the tiebreaker is, because if Psyched wins 2 out of the 3, then he'll get 14 points and get tied with Moose. If he wins all 3, then he'll just overtake him. At the same time, if Scrublord wins these next 2 out of 3, then he'll jump up into 8th.
Yeah, and it looks like I may be reading the chart slightly wrong, but it looks like if Psyched takes this win, it would be his 10th win as compared to Moose having 11. And I would need to go ahead and look at the rule sheet. So this may not be correct, but I believe that the tiebreaker would be the actual win-loss ratio, or like the number of wins. But I'm not certain about that.
That would make sense.
And so these guys going ahead and putting in that new file name.
And so this whole point system and playoffs and everything leads into PACE, which is the live event in Maryland, where 4 people will be running Celeste and a bunch of other of the top games like Odyssey and Super Mario 64. I know the people who made Celeste put in like 5,000 for the pot, so that should be a really exciting event to see and to watch and everything.
Oh, absolutely. And I will actually be attending the event live and commentating those finals. So I'd love to see as many of y'all there as possible. And if you're not able to make it, definitely be sure to catch it live, because we should have some really, really exciting races there.
Yeah, for sure. Are you running anything there at all?
Unfortunately not. I'm still in the beginning of trying to learn a couple of speed runs. So just along for the ride this time around.
Doing commentary. As we see them start off again in this second race here. Now, is Celeste something that you've started speed running?
I've messed around with it a little bit here and there. I still have a lot of progress to make. I still before I get really committed into trying to learn like any percent, I do eventually want to finish out my 100% playthrough. Um,
And 114 potentially.
yeah, something like that. Definitely really love the game, and it's one that I eventually want to start getting into any percent and grinding for a decent time, something at the very least sub 40, hopefully sub 35.
Mm-hmm. Sub 40, I think, is definitely a fun goal to go to, and it's just fun to. It's a really fun game to speedrun, just in general.
Yeah, and there's a huge skill ceiling. Ultimately, there's a lot of optimization that you can do at really any level. It's very difficult to reach any sort of point where you're struggling for things that you can work on to make yourself go faster.
For sure, and that's one of the things that I think is really nice about the game is because there's like 50 different ways, a million different ways to complete any different screen. There's no matter what level you're at, it's going to be something where you're never bored necessarily at any point in time, like just doing these easy things, because there's always going to be something more difficult that you can be doing. But you're never going to feel necessarily like stuck on this really difficult thing that you feel like you have to do, but you can't. You can always choose either a slightly more difficult or slightly less difficult strat, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's there are a lot of more beginner friendly routes, and I mean ultimately though, like talking about that skill ceiling, watching these guys just go back and forth over and over, just minor mistakes each room. One of them makes a mistake that loses, maybe a couple of seconds, falls behind. Next room, one of them misses a corner boost or just something weird, and just constant back and forth changes.
Mm-hmm. As we get some nice sync going right here.
Yeah, we promise that we're not just playing the same video feed twice. These guys are really just that close together through old site. And I just love the music for old site so much.
I know, it's my favorite music for sure. Especially right here with the chase. And I love seeing when they're synced, I like seeing just like Madeline climb up the wall and both of them just like climbing up the wall at the same rate and everything.
Yep. Okay, Scrublord was a tad iffy a couple rooms back, but seems to have pretty well fully recovered and has started really playing with that high level again. This chase can just be so bad sometimes. Things just don't go quite right, and Madeline is in kind of an unfamiliar spot.
Yeah. They're pretty much, I'm trying to figure out who's in the lead. I think it's Psych, because their clocks are really close together. But I mean, they're essentially just neck and neck here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so Psyched is a second ahead. That's it. He skipped the cutscene at 3:03, Scrublord at 3:04. So Psyched, very narrow lead at the moment.
And sometimes,
and that may have. Okay, that didn't cost him that lead, I don't think, but it certainly cut into it just a little bit. That just again missed dash.
Yeah, they both pretty much got caught up on the awake section at like exactly the same time. And it can certainly feel, with like how close people often are in these first two chapters, every little thing can feel like really important, and you're like, oh, he missed like that one small corner boost. But ultimately it's just like 2 seconds difference, and then just like any death anywhere will make up for that. But I know like sometimes on City I'll just be like, oh no, he only got like 104 instead of a 103. Will he ever be able to recover?
and then you see the races end like 30 seconds apart, and you're like, well, maybe they could recover.
Yeah, that was always fun. The very first Celeste tournament, people would be like 2 minutes ahead of someone else, and it'd be like one person with like a 34-minute PB and one person with a 40-minute PB, and it'd still be like, well, it's anybody's race. But in this game, I think because there is sort of like that skill ceiling, and because deaths aren't as big. Certainly, there are some sections where deaths are huge, but compared to other games, no death is going to be absolutely massive. And so, in general, you're not going to see a ton of like huge upsets or like wild lead changes or stuff like that. This, though, is definitely, I mean, these are two runners that are going to generally probably be pretty close, as we saw for almost all of the last race.
Yep, and I mean those are the races that you really want to see is just that close maintenance all the way through.
Sure.
And already both these guys seem to have learned from their mistakes on that last resort. Much cleaner, much more fluid execution this time around.
Yeah, they had that one boxes screen that they both died in last time, and neither of them did, which is good. It's important for this, the huge meth section. And someone asking how close race 1 was. It was pretty much neck and neck through the first 5 chapters, and a lot of chapter 6, but then Psyched ended up pulling away and won by about 30 seconds.
Beautiful movement right now, and Scrublord actually in the lead by a couple of seconds just due to that nice movement through resort so far. Let's see how the washer section goes for them.
Scrublord with a really nice corner boost there to take himself a little bit of a lead. Is not an easy strat to do by any means.
Not at all. These guys definitely both showing off the just insane level that they're at. And Mega Man pointing out they did not play the Pico 8 invalid run despite Pico 8 not being required for any percent, and it's still, you know, it's a vital part of any race. You gotta pay homage.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't lose time off of the timer when you're in Pico. As, Scrublord, that's always a rough death. And he compounds the problem by dying there, too.
Yeah, that's... Any of those, like, big key areas where you have, like, 4 or 5 keys you have to collect, dying towards the end is just such a huge time loss.
Yeah. I know, it's difficult when things don't quite go your way. As we see, Psyched had no issues with the demo, but some issues with the screen after, as Scrublord trying to line up the demo here, and
too high again on that lineup.
A bit of issue.
Too high again.
I know there was one race I was watching where Scrublord died to demo about 30 to 40 times.
I certainly hope that's not the case here, but it's looking like he's just going way too high.
He's just, you know, smashing himself right into it.
For those that don't know exactly how demo works, what they're trying to do is get Madeline to do a sideways. Yeah, he's just gonna have to skip it. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, he's not dealing with it right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty major time loss, as you're about to see.
It is bigger than any time loss he had in the last race, for sure.
So if you kind of notice that like little gap on both sides, that block of the like dust bunny isn't actually solid. There is a gap there, which is why the two edges look that way. And that gap just happens to be the same vertical height as Madeline's crouched hitbox. So what they're trying to do with Demo Dash is a pixel perfect crouched dash sideways through that tunnel, and Scrublord just kept, it looked like he just kept trying to do the dash too high, or maybe just not crouching properly.
Yeah, and he wasn't really fully setting it up as much as one might want. And so yeah, Madeline crouched is 4 pixels wide. Is a nice save from Scrublord there. And the gap is exactly 4 pixels wide. So like you said, it's pixel perfect. People generally move, it's like 1.5 to 2 pixels up on the screen. If you ever really want to get into it, on the Discord, there is a nice chart that goes into the subpixels of the area. And so people have kind of gone crazy with it.
You just torn it totally apart. Now, I've heard people bring up demo buttons a couple of times. That's not some sort of macro, is it? I'm assuming that they're just talking about like they map keyboard keys in such a way to make demo easier.
Yeah, it's so basically you can have a button that just, because one of the difficult things about the demo, making sure that you're holding down, but then you're also going to the left there, to the left or right. So the demo button just makes it basically so that you're holding down no matter what, so that you can just press left or right.
I see.
Away one of the difficult aspects of it. You still have to like line up for this strat at least, like the demo correctly, so you still have to get the correct height, but it takes away part of what makes it difficult. It is something that I've always felt was a little iffy, but it's pretty much just been accepted. And you'll see it allows for a lot of cool stuff for sure, and a lot of things that you might not realize are demos, but are, and it just allows her to, like, because she's shorter and crouched, get up to places that she might not. Oh, ooh, look, if you look at a Scrublord's screen here, we'll see if he continues to go for it. Oh, he tried it the first time. He was just going to do an auto scroller skip here, but then died almost immediately and decided against it.
You really can't blame him, especially with the massive time loss from those demo fails.
Yeah, I mean, you knew that, or he knows that with all of that, with Demo Dash, he's pretty much, I mean, at least for now, done or close to done. So it's sort of just like a Hail Mary thing, or, you know, a little bit of a showing off.
And someone clarifying in chat, that makes a lot of sense with the demo button.
No, Scrublord, keep trying it. Oh, he sort of tried it. Sorry, Scrublord was beginning to attempt the very wacky auto scroller skip on that screen. If you want to see it again, I would recommend checking out Scrublord's IL or Ridge on the speedrun.com/Celeste page. It's
that
quite interesting to see.
That auto scroller skip is just wild. I wonder if we would ever see people crazy enough to try going for it in runs.
It's something that I think about is just like, you know, 6 more months from now, I'm sure people are still going to be running this. There's not like a huge, crazy amount of like major optimizations left or anything. So something like that can potentially save a lot of time is definitely something I think we could see people going for at some point in time, especially if someone finds a way to do it a little more consistently. As we see a little bit of a messed up yeet there from Psych.
Yeah, definitely a yeetin'. Probably even probably like a yeet instead of a.
That I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you.
Whomstead of wouldn't agree.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, as Psyched taking a death here on the tape grab screen.
Ooh, and taking just dashing a little bit too quickly, and that time platform just wasn't there.
The timing for all this is so specific that it can mess it up if you die on any of these. On specific tape grab screen.
All the tape grab screens, like especially casually, can be a little bit tricky with how exactly the timings have to work. And if a little bit of movement just goes kind of sloppy, you end up incurring such time loss.
As we can see, it's got to be about a minute difference here between Psyched and Scrublord.
And yeah, it's a shame that a trick like Demo Dash is so important that failing it like Scrublord did leaves them at such a disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, that one of the nice things again about Celeste, as I sure like speedrunning Celeste, is that there aren't too many like big huge things that you have to be able to know. Well, like specific difficult strats, pixel perfect strats that you have to be able to know how to do.
if there's something that you really hate, then you can usually go around it. One of those exceptions is what we see Psych struggling at right now.
Was about to say, yeah, 2 Bubs Drop fails so far. This is a little bit worrisome. Okay, he's got the 3rd one though, so he is still a decent amount ahead of Scrublord, but that got a little bit iffy for a moment there.
It did, but Bubs Drop and Demo Dash are definitely 2 of those things that at this point you pretty much need to. And so if it's something that you just like struggle with, oh, okay, Psyched. Oh, but he spawns back there, so that's good. Just kind of jumped off there as he is struggling with this spike jump, but gets it eventually.
Yeah, spike jumps are such a once you get used to them, they should be somewhat forgiving, but it's still something that, like, as Psych just demonstrated, occasionally like you just can't get the timing quite right.
Yeah, for me at least, it's very much like a must. And so, or like, you know, I'll come in at like a specific spot on the screen from the previous screen. And so if you die there or something messes it up, it can be really difficult to just like get it back.
Yup. And we see Psyched in the second half of the Mirror Temple now, having to deal with all these Seekers. And going for the... that was the older setup, right? I remember hearing that there's a new setup there that saves like about half of a Seeker cycle.
Oh, yeah. And that's something we were talking about yesterday. So there is a strat that is quite difficult where you just sort of ignore the second of the pillars there and you land on the 3rd one by just like scooting barely under the 2nd one, and then get your dash back from the Seeker and corner boost off of, or I think it's technically a corner boost off of the 3rd one. It's very difficult to do. I'm sure like a month from now, everyone will be doing it super consistently with no problem.
Yeah, last night I saw Tej going for it and having pretty big issues with it and runs.
Right now, I think just about everyone's struggling with it. That's some nice improvisation there from Scrublord.
Yeah. But then ending up taking a death to that Seeker anyway later on in the gauntlet. And the movement with Theo here, because you're never really having to do this like pick up, grab, throw type stuff throughout really the rest of the game, it can be kind of weird. Ooh, and taking a death there as well. Mirror Temple B not going super well for Scrublord at the moment.
Not going particularly well for either. It wasn't great for Psyched either, but still doing all right.
And Psych making his way through Reflection.
All right, and that was a that for Scrublord. Oh, I cannot see. Like a 250, I think. And for all of the people definitely wondering, the Michigan State Duke game is 34-30 Michigan State at half. I'm sure there's a ton of crossover here.
Oh, absolutely.
In March Madness. But just wanted to keep the people informed.
As you do.
Yeah, I have Duke winning it all. So it's something I'm keeping an eye on as Scrublord's legs get there.
Yeah.
Party, sure, just not today. I'm fine with that.
Oh, sports rivalries. Psyched ending up taking the spike dash instead of the bumper. Kind of interesting. They're not entirely sure what happened with this control.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, getting a just kind of a weird set of.
Yeah, he got a nice slide under the Kevin block, which is not easy to do. But then I guess just got a little overeager with it and dashed up too early and hit the spikes. maybe wasn't expecting to quite get that slide that he did. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it kind of seemed like to me, ultimately.
And takes that, this, going all the way fast through that screen that Spike was on can be a real pain to make sure that you get, I mean, it's a pretty big gap that you have to get into, but it is really easy to either overshoot or undershoot yourself, especially if you don't end up getting your dash back at the end there.
Yep. And Scrublord making up a little bit of time over sight with that Kevin block kind of skip.
Yeah. As he doesn't quite get it fast, but then still manages to get the corner boot at the end of that top route. That was nice from him.
And Sight with just beautiful movement to go ahead and enter this battle and fight.
Are we able to get another hey ya? Or are you all hey ya?
Well, So I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I need it. Hey.
Okay, that was beautiful. Unexpected, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Also, is that what you wanted?
Almost. Was
A
it
little bit closer.
same as last time?
It wasn't as good. You only get one of those a day. I feel like there's only that 24-hour
Fair
quota.
enough. No, I can understand. You get 0 from me, so is doing really well.
Nice battle and fights so far. Not really seeing any major errors of any kind.
He had that one death, but overall, looking solid. As last time he died there doing Ultra, this time no issues. So that's good for him. And for anyone, Scrublord hitting that feather, unfortunately. It's always fun to see that strat. But for anyone who is unaware what an Ultra might be, so Hyperring is the main thing where you go fast, and then an Ultra is, let me remember the words for this. Basically, when you are going faster than a normal dash, so if you're like Hyperring, and then you hit down right, and like do a down right dash, when you hit the ground, you get ultra speed. So it's basically a hyper into a downright dash, is what an ultra is, and it allows you to go crazy fast as Sight hits a spike over and over and over and over. And you can chain the ultras together to just keep going faster and faster and faster, and really achieve some crazy speeds as he saves himself at the end of this long screen here.
Yeah, and Scrublord, even though he was a pretty significant amount behind starting this fight and midway through the fight, definitely making up a little bit of time over Sight with those repeated spike errors. And one of the things that makes Celeste such a great speed game is tech like Ultras, where it really kind of breaks any sort of speed cap the game tries to put on you. It's really fascinating how doing that advanced tech just completely allows you to just get ridiculous speed.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, especially when you can do that. And there was one, when they introduced the variants, which is the thing that allows you to like change the speed or super dash or whatever, as Scrublord narrowly avoids the laser at the end of this screen but doesn't die. They accidentally allowed you to like really easily get essentially infinite speed by just down dashing into the ground over and over. Well, like downright dashing essentially. And so you could go to Epilogue
and you know, to the right of it, there's that long screen. You can just do it over and over and just gain basically infinite speed and just absolutely fly through it. That was a really fun about 3-4 hours, I think, before they patched it out of the game. But we all had a really fun time with that. There were some crazy things to do at the end of like the core screens, where you could just build up this insane amount of momentum and just fly through the entire thing. I want to say look it up, but I don't know where you'd be able to look it up, as Psych has a nice save there. Good job, Psych.
But then ends up dying to the spikes right after.
Yeah.
Kind of out of the frying pan into the self-kindled fire, as it were.
It's a good way to put it, yeah. And you know, you can still be proud of the save, even if you completely ruin it right afterward.
Oh yeah, of course.
As we see Psyched coming up on 1,000 as gets into 500.
Nice dream block dashes there. I just love that diagonal movement. It's so nice.
Oh, definitely. So we see it's just about the same time difference than it was a while ago. It looked like it's still about a minute difference between the two of them. You can see their timers are about the same, but Psyched has been in Summit for like 2 minutes and 10 seconds, where Scrublord's been in it for about 1:20.
Yeah, I mean, again, those demo dash fails just really, really cost Scrublord this time around.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, there was a previous one where he was just throwing himself into just over and over, no setup or anything. And it must have been 30 or 40 times that it was funny seeing like his death stats at the end, where it's just, you know, it's like 1 to 5 deaths in each one, and then like 40-50 deaths in Resort. Still, you know, ending with a decent time, just all of this massive amount of Resort deaths.
Yeah.
I still, despite this race, something I believe he has improved on in general.
Yeah, and with any trick as precise as that, there will be times that it just won't work for whatever reason. And I think Scrublord just unfortunately experienced one of those mid-race.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where just like in that moment, and you don't know until you get there. Maybe you just, for whatever reason, completely lose. And it's one of my less favorite parts about speedrunning, I think, is that sometimes it does feel like there's just like this dam and there are all these holes getting poked into it that you're trying to stop. So you're trying to like learn this new strat or that new strat, but then for whatever reason, this one thing that you've been getting successfully for no problem for like a month, you suddenly start failing like half the time. And so you have to try and fix that. And at the same time, this other thing's getting worse and you're trying to learn this other strat. And so you want it to just be consistent improvement, as Psych does some cool looking stuff on this screen. But you constantly have to deal with trying to make sure you don't lose all of this stuff that you've already previously learned.
Yep. Absolutely right on that. And I mean, there's really no better way to put it. It's just like constantly putting out fires. Just one thing starts going better, and then something else just kind of starts going a tad worse. And it's just really difficult to make sure all of your movement and strategies and everything is on the exact same page to try to avoid some of that.
Yeah, for sure. And as we were talking about like the demos, the demo button, one thing we saw from Psych there that we may see from Scrublord coming up is in this final screen of 2000, you're able to just sort of like slide over this block that lets you go right through it. And that's made like 12 million times easier by the demo button. I think it is. Maybe people can just do it normally. But that is a demo that you have to do there to get Madeline crouched and slide under the spikes, but on top of the moving block there to get you right through it. So it saves a few, or like a second or so, I suppose.
And free seconds are free seconds ultimately.
Yeah. I believe Phoenix called it, with the approval of like the demo button, essentially a community approved free second.
So it's like the bingo free spaces effectively.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you know what? We've approved this demo button, so here you can go do this strat here and yourself.
Certainly very interesting how the communities decided to fix various issues like those.
Yeah.
As Psyched is now at 3,000 meters. And, oh, Scrublord having issues with door skip now. He's got the first one. Okay, so he is through that room now, but even more time loss that he just could not afford to take. And I mean, you know, Scrublord, at first it was just very, very basic time loss. You know, he was having to borrow time from friends and family, but then he started having to take out high interest time loans, and then he had to start visiting the Time Shark, and that's where things just really went downhill.
That's rough. Yeah, Western Sky. He probably heard some video right?
Something like that.
And yeah, now that's really bad. Don't take out high interest loans.
Absolutely. Nice spike jumps from Psych there. Wow.
Yeah, that's a nice looking screen there. The whole, as I mentioned last race, I like the whole downdraft section and all of the strats people have figured out for it. They look really nice.
Really just so much movement through this game is very, very fluid and beautiful, but downdraft especially, I can certainly agree with. And some of these, I gotta say casually, like where you would have to jump over a surface and then move Madeline back towards the wall on the other side for a wall grab and then wall jump or whatever. Just all that sort of like moving forward and then backwards, just little bits to avoid spike deaths. It was just all so daunting at a point. Reminded me a lot of the fight at the end of Undertale. I'm gonna try not to spoil it in case anyone doesn't know what it is, but
yeah, no, it's definitely something that you first get to it can feel a little overwhelming, and but as you learn more about it, and intricacies and everything of it, just becomes a lot more comfortable and easier.
Yeah, it's just over time, it just you start figuring out the patterns, but they're kind of weird patterns still, and it's like taking that kind of interesting death there on those spikes. Also, I no shame, it took me like easily 6 hours to get through that fight once, and the only reason I did was because of the simulator online that lets you practice any move.
Yeah, I actually never did. I got to it and I played through it a bunch, but then I had someone who I wanted to play through Undertale, and so I just went and deleted everything. Never actually got back to it.
Oh man, it's a very the ending afterwards messes with your emotions a lot. It's very really that entire route through the game is just wild. But
yes, as we try not to spoil this thing that presumably every single about.
Yeah, I'm sure it became such a meme that I'm sure everyone knows what it is anyway, but still, for the one person that has not had it spoiled, you're welcome. As Psych wins the second race. Yeah, go play it. It's a fantastic game, especially if you kind of like just games that really give you a lot of choice and really try to cultivate like in some ways it almost feels like a real world that you go into. It's really interesting how Toby Fox establishes that permanence. But of course we're watching Celeste races, not Undertale races, and Psyched pulling out a 30-27, nearly a minute ahead of Scrublord in the second race. So really, obviously, as we were kind of talking about earlier with all of the point systems and such, Scrublord now isn't in a position to take 8th place from Moose. However, he is in a position to possibly prevent Psyched from overtaking Moose. So if Scrublord wins this next race, then Psyched is going to be tied with Moose rather than flat out ahead. And kind of just thinking through things, I think a lot of it's going to come down to if Scrublord is able to avoid some of these huge mistakes that kept plaguing him throughout these past 2 runs.
Yeah, he's gonna have to figure out Demo Dash, and then just play solid. And it's really just those. And I mean, Psych does have like the better PB in general by about like 50 seconds. But these have both definitely been. I mean, like Psych just won with a 30-27, and he won with a 30-05 before. Like these have been winnable races for Scrublord. I'm sure this whole time, the last one, Psych was thinking he was gonna lose this race. So he just needs to figure these things out. As one of the things Psych mentioned is he got a 428 temple split in the last race, which is not good.
Yeah, no. That is about the split that would be decent if you weren't doing 5B.
Yeah, you definitely want to do a little better than that. With a 428, you'd be like, yeah, okay, all right. If you think about like a 110 tape grab that you want, and then like a 230-ish 5B, that would be about 340. So that's about 50 seconds lost there for Psyched in Temple. Which means the rest of his, because he was with a 30-ish, about, was that a minute 40 off of his PB? I don't know, math. So
so his PB Psyched is a 29-24, so just right around a minute.
Yeah, well, let me take a look at this real quick. So he has a 28-59 actually.
Oh, interesting. So that
it looks like you were looking at Moose's time.
Yeah, I think I was actually. Well, for some reason it looks like on the stat sheet that the.
Oh, wait, might be like his best time in the tournament.
Yeah, that must be the case, not his actual PB.
Yeah,
well, I'm not sure because isn't TGH's PB 27-52-53?
So the funny story about that is that TGH has 227. One of them is not in this tournament, and one of them is in this tournament. So both his overall PB and his PB in this tournament are just about the same time.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So if you just look at that, you go, oh yeah, like these over.
Okay,
would not
wait, hold that thought for just a sec. What on earth happened to Scrublord there? That was a really weird death that he took. He is wow, he's getting a really bad start here. Already taking 2 deaths in Forsaken City. What is going on Scrublord's end?
I don't know, but hopefully he's not too tilted from the previous races and from getting a 31, and he's able to pull himself together. But
I mean, I'm certainly hoping not to, but based on what we're seeing, it looks like he might be, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where, I mean, it's not ideal, but I mean, on his end, you just have to keep in mind that it's City and that he didn't do a great job, and he would definitely reset already if this was like him trying for a PB. But overall, it's going to be potentially what, like 10-ish seconds loss, maybe a little more, and that's definitely like savable over the course of everything as well. Okay, we see here they actually
you're just about synced.
Even. That was fast. Psyched had some struggle there on the last screen of City, and allowed Scrublord to catch himself up.
Yeah, so and making the restreamer's job real easy, not even having to manually sync anything yet.
Yeah,
Pretty hype.
really nice. We haven't been waiting around on people too much. Both been pretty much clicking on to the next chapter at about the same time.
Ooh, but then Scrublord taking a death, double deaths on those spikes there, just not getting quite enough height before attempting that second dash.
Yeah,
I gotta say, the Aurora effect in this level makes it probably one of my favorite levels aesthetically. I really, really love the introduction to reflections for the same reason.
it's really beautiful. It's got a lot of things. I love the look of it. I love the music. I love the dream blocks. Pretty much the whole thing. I like the little chat that she has with Battlein, where she's a little sassy.
Oh yeah,
After all around.
it really like the whole story to this game is just really beautiful. I really, really appreciate all of it, and like its overall message and the presentation, just everything. It's all so wonderfully executed, I feel like.
Yeah, and I always enjoy when there's like a story or whatever where your main, she's a little bit of an asshole. She's a little rude to the old lady at some points.
I mean, to be fair, the old woman just kind of laughs in her face.
It's very true.
I feel like both of them were a little bit mean to each other in some ways.
Yeah, and that's okay. Maybe that's not the world's best message.
They made up at the end.
They did.
Madeline proved that she did have the willpower necessary to climb Celeste Mountain, and so I guess in that way she earned the old woman's respect.
It's true. As we see them pretty much end again at the same time here. Psyched, I think, I guess like 2 to 3 seconds ahead going into Resort.
Yep. Not really kind of a replay of our previous races in a lot of ways, but Scrublord definitely got to be at least a little bit worried right now, I feel like, because of just all those demo dash fails, which demo dash is recorded as his worst trick, which interestingly enough, he is the only one in the league with that as his worst trick. For instance, Fledervia and Nero both have Battle and Boost as their worst, as well as M Sushi. Battle and Boost seeming to be one of the more common worst, but at the same time, Resort isn't established as his worst chapter. Oh, go on, sorry.
Part of that is that, like, he will have sometimes where, and I guess this would affect, where, like, there are plenty of times where he doesn't mess up Demo Dash, but then you see he has these times every once in a while where he'll just mess it up over and over.
Yep. Both of them getting past this kind of Monka Dust Bunny room that Sight took a couple of deaths in earlier. Ooh, and then Sight finding a new Dust Bunny to go ahead and take deaths from. Scrublord dashing his way down into this doorway. And Sight, meanwhile, about to start the huge meth section.
Yes, that's beautiful saying of it. Huge meth, huge meth, huge meth. He enters. Okay, are they gonna have? Yeah, they. He has no problem, at least, with that one box's screen. Scrublord does, though.
Yeah, kind of a repeat of first race and taking a second death in a different spot there. He's got the room figured out this time, though, and able to make it through. But Sight has already started going ahead and pulling forward a fair bit. This is not what Scrublord really wants out of this race.
No, but he's got plenty of time.
Oh man, I can't believe that didn't just kill Sight. What even? He must have been just he must have really truly been on the verge of colliding with that Dust Bunny's hitbox. That was just insane. Wow. Scrublord playing it a lot more safe there, not having any sort of Monka whatsoever, but I definitely think Psych's heart probably skipped a couple of beats there.
Yeah, some of these you get real close to. And there are some situations where you know it and you expect it, and there are some where it just freaks you out.
Absolutely.
Scrublord not attempting the corner boost that time. And then taking an unfortunate death there.
Yeah, playing it safe and not having it pay off, unfortunately. That's always really rough to see.
Yeah. And Psyched missing the coin there, so he'll lose a little bit of time. But then able to recover and not have any more issues there as he comes up on Demo Dash. He's been doing checkpointless, and he hasn't had any issues with it. So that's good from him. He gets the corner boost. He almost dies there, but then doesn't. Not the perfect final screen there before Oshiro, but he will definitely take that.
Yeah, and especially Scrublord taking a bit of a costly death towards the end of this. Ooh, double death. That is going to cost him pretty significantly, and he still hasn't actually made it to the Demo Dash.
Yeah. As Psych takes a death there in Oshiro. It is not easy in that first screen of Oshiro to get through it the way people do it now without helping him. But Psych managed to just hit that perfect amount of strats there to get that perfectly fast first screen, which was nice from him.
Scrublord with the triple demo fail. Okay, he gets it fourth try. That's good. I mean, it's obviously still wasting a few seconds, but at least he didn't have to go around. That's nice.
Yeah, it's, that mental block wasn't just good.
It is strange, though. It looked like he failed it the exact same way those 3 times. I don't know if it's just that there are a couple of different ways that the inputs can go wrong that have that same animation, or if it actually was him going, it looked like too late each of those times.
Yeah, I mean, so generally, if you're hitting the Dust Bunny above where you want to go, when too high. If you're hitting the Dust Bunny below, you're going too low. And then if you hit the one that's like inside of it, like towards the left, then you haven't gone far enough left before you dash through. And those are really the 3 main visual things that you can get wrong with Demo Dash. As we see, okay, so Psyched here apparently hates this because he goes the way I go, which is not a good sign for any of these runners. Taking the same strats as I have. He is not only not arching, but he is not taking the fast strat there either. So I'm curious if that's something that he has never done and just isn't comfortable with, or just something that, as we were talking about earlier, sometimes there are some things that you're able to do no problem for months, and then all of a sudden is an issue.
Yeah, one of the kind of interesting examples from the Mario community recently, Punkation has been known for saying that a pretty difficult trick called Breezeless is pretty free for him. And then I remember seeing a tweet a couple weeks back where he had just been failing it over and over for about a week or so.
Yeah.
It's just randomly stuff will just suddenly break for whatever reason. It's really kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And both of them having their own sets of issues with getting on top of various platforms, like even having to go back through a screen transition to take advantage of the dash back for
and check out Scrublord's screen here, as he is there. That's very nice. He's able to get through that auto scroller skip that you see people almost never try.
Wow.
So keep an eye out for him on the screen that Psyched is currently on as well, as it looked like he was going for it the first time in this previous race. We'll see if he goes for it in this second race as well. But it's definitely a fun one to see happen.
Yeah, and that could make him up some pretty significant time.
Yeah, And yeah, he's going for it. All right. Ooh.
Oh, just
We'll see if he feels like he has it. No, he won't try it that time. But basically, it looks like he's just like killing himself on purpose. But you can get a corner boost through that block and get you enough speed, distance, basically to get to the right wall on the screen, and then just climb up from there. It is nuts.
Yeah. I mean, with how nuts some of the common strategies are in this game already, it's really saying something that most people don't normally go for a strat.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's
all right.
Seen TGH mess with that first auto scroller skip before. Try it out a little bit, but then ultimately it's just not consistent enough, and it doesn't save enough time to quite be worth it.
Yep, and Psyched starting out Mirror Temple A.
Try and pay a little more attention this time to see how the yeets go. That's, not actually that important, but I feel like it's sort of overtaken door skip, where door skip was this fun thing that people like to see.
Ooh, and that was a really kind of devastating, missing that jump there.
Yeah.
Had the speed, just not the height.
That was none of it. That wasn't the YE, that wasn't the EE. That was just unsuccessful all around.
It wasn't even a yeet one.
No, it was definitely not. I guess you just call it a hyper at that point. Just a regular old hyper.
Nothing fancy, nothing special.
No.
Let's see if Scrublord is able to do anything better with it, though. Ooh, and actually just like colliding with the corner and then not able to get over there fast enough. See,
Yeah,
that's one of the
himself
really
enough
big
time.
difficulties of Mirror Temple is how these platforms will like jolt really quickly, but they'll only stay in the final position for like a second or so before they actually start moving back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have just a little bit of slack in your gameplay and you take a little bit longer to reach one of these platforms, it can be really devastating with how fast they also move back. And Psych for that first try Bubs drop, really nice.
There we go. That's good for him. That helps to make up for whatever he said his 428 tempo split last time. Should be looking at a better time in this race.
Yeah, certainly hoping for the much more optimal time that actually is reflective of the fact that he's doing 5B.
Yes.
And
how Scrublord does in the Bubs drop as well. And for anyone wondering what exactly Bubs drop is, so basically the momentum of the screen as Scrublord gets it successfully, so that's nice from him. The momentum from the screen is supposed to carry you up onto that platform. But what you are doing is you are basically wall bouncing off of the wall and just doing like a really tiny short one that kills your momentum enough to bring you back under the platform. So you just have like this 2-frame window basically where you can release the jump button to wall bounce to allow you to do that. So it's a really short, specific amount of time. And there's some sort of visual cues for how you're messing it up. If you wall bounce but then end up on the platform, then you've hit your jump too late. And if you just don't wall jump at all and you just see yourself kind of like slowly and sadly slide, that's a lot of S's, up the right wall, then you've hit it too early. And that's sort of how you can know which direction you're doing it wrong.
yeah, and it's It's one of those tricks that it is pretty precise, but it saves a substantial enough amount of time that it's really worth putting the time into.
Oh yeah, it saves. And here on Scrublord's screen, you see that sort of newer pillar strat that we were talking. But yeah, at 5B wouldn't be worth it with some way of skipping that substantial amount of area that Bubstrop does. There was previously a incredibly difficult corner boost that people would do every once in a while that would allow 5B to potentially be faster. But now with Bubstrop being a way more consistent, you see people doing 5B.
Okay, and
Scrublord having some difficulty with this specific screen here. He had some difficulty last race, but was able to save him properly the first time.
yeah, he very nearly had a save earlier and just ended up not being able to wall bounce back up to where he needed to be.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Sights with that really nice lake skip to start off the reflection.
Is he doing 6B question mark? He definitely is. All right. Well, this will be fun to watch, and we'll see if he's not able to get a bunch of speed in this screen, but he is going to be doing 6B. So cool.
That's pretty interesting. I wonder, he must just decide to mess around, knowing how much of a lead he has at the moment.
Yeah, it's also possible. Again, I don't know how the time. So if somebody does, feel free to mention it, chat. Or you were saying about the tiebreaker as well, but maybe he thinks that he has the 8th place spot locked up now with these 2 wins. So he's just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do 6B.
Could be something like that. Who knows? I've never even done 6B casually. I've never even seen the stage. So how long is it? How much time do you think this is going to lose?
It really depends on how well he does. So 6B in a hypothetical world will save time over 6A, but only like a couple seconds. So you see, if people go for 6B in regular any percent, it's pretty much just for fun. And also with the hypothesis that it's going to help them long term. That over time, 6B is going to be a little less optimized right now than 6A is. So hopefully, 4 or 5 months from now, more and more people are going to be doing 6B as more and more time is figured out to be saved. But right now, you really have to do everything close to perfectly just to save a couple of seconds. You'll see it done in all red berries, the category where you get all of the red berries, because for that you need 4 hearts to enter core, and completing 6B gives you a heart, and so it gives you a little bit more leeway, because the time you would spend normally getting a heart elsewhere you can save. So that's like 12 extra seconds that you can save in all red berries.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting just sort of how all of that interact with each other. So my guess for Psyched is that we'll probably see like a 30 boss, maybe more. Heck, maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. It all really depends. I know he's been practicing a little, but he's not one of these like 6B people that, there's like Revo or Babai or Evan's Fight who do a lot of 6B, and he's not one of those people.
Yeah, and as we've seen here, he's already taken a good 6-7 deaths throughout the entire stage.
Yeah.
Although it is certainly mesmerizing to watch, and unfortunately kind of stealing the attention away from Scrublord.
Oh, I mean, I'll be honest. I've been watching the 6B.
And so both of them in their respective battle and fights around the same time.
Yeah, getting close to it. We'll see if Oh, okay. Scrublord just never grabbed onto that one. There are worse deaths to have in that screen. As Psyched gets that difficult little corner there, It can be tricky, but he gets it no and Scrublord getting to Battlein right at around 3 minutes, so he's doing all right for his 6A. As like, okay, that's solid. These are some difficult screens right here.
Oh, no doubt. I'm just looking at all of these, like, how are you even supposed to do this casually?
There are definitely some people that feel like it's the most difficult B-side.
I mean, I can certainly see why.
Yes, some of these are they're tough.
It's certainly a little bit daunting just how difficult the B-sides are from the very start.
Yeah. And someone in chat just asked, why is Psych doing B-side?
Psych just decided to.
We'll have to ask.
Yeah, he just started going for it.
This screen is tough. Ooh, but okay, we get to see Psych get it successfully. That's nice.
Nice. Okay, yeah,
that
second
fast
try.
like that is tough. Different hypotheses that we have for why he's doing side. One, he feels like this race isn't necessary for him in general. Maybe he got bored. Do it. Maybe he feels like he's either too far or too behind for it to matter. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really just he started doing it with no real explanation or reasoning, so we're kind of just left guessing what exactly is going through his mind.
He didn't like use Madeline's squat to like give us Morse code for an explanation or anything, which would have been nice. Not that I would have been able to understand it, because I don't know code.
Yeah, certainly would have admired the creativity.
Yeah, oh for sure. We'll see. I'm curious. There are some interesting he manages to get lucky there on that screen. But there are some different strats for this final screen. Some of them look pretty cool, so I'm curious to see what he ends up going for. Well, all of that's kind of negated with the death.
Oh yeah, and then that second death from just not getting enough height there. And well, I think he actually like maybe went a bit early and missed the platform as a result.
Okay, nice.
Jeez, they give you 4 platforms, 4 time platforms to deal with. What even?
Yeah. But so we see Psych ends at right about 22 minutes with his 6B. Scrublord going to be about 30 seconds behind after the little divergence there with reflection.
Yep. And is there an extra cutscene because of how Psych did B? It looked like he like skipped a cutscene that I assume would have kind of been the like equivalent of the level up that Scrublord went through, since that level up doesn't happen in B.
Oh yeah, no, that he doesn't get to experience.
Yes, Cartesian. We were discussing it earlier. With the current best strats, 6B only saves a couple of seconds if performed perfectly over 6A. But there is also the possibility, because not very many people have really tried messing with 6B in any percent, there could be a number of optimizations that could make it more akin to 5B.
We'll see. I'm really curious to see where it goes in the upcoming months, and especially with, I think Arb All Red Berries is getting a little more popular, and as like Nero and Evans and Babai are really sort of pushing it, and I saw TGH learning it a little the other day, and they are all doing 6B in ARB, so it'll be interesting to see if from that we get some more different strats.
Now I can't seem to quite remember. Are there not very many berries in 6A, or at least just not during the battle and fight?
There are none. So Chapter 6 has no... I think story-wise, that's supposed to sort of mean something. I don't remember exactly what, but kind of just like allowing you to focus on like what's going on and everything instead of exploring. And Chapter 6 has some like different... It's one of the only ones... Well, it has more of a focus on like, you can take this top path or you can take this bottom path. And so you'll see a lot of people casually be like, oh, well, I want to, I want to look for berries. So I don't want to have to like take one path and then have to get like stuck on this other one. And then they slowly realize that there aren't berries at all in the chapter.
That's pretty funny. And yeah, that's definitely fair. Missing semi. Psyched with some just beautiful resort movement here.
Yeah, no, he's looking good. I swear at some point I remember Matt Thorson saying something about we didn't want berries and because something story, something. I
guess it kind of makes sense with like how Battlein like throws you down to the bottom of the mountain. I guess like maybe it's like an unexplored area or like an older area where the berries just don't grow.
Yeah. Nobody's left their weird berries lying around.
I do have to kind of complain a little bit to Matt for specifically putting that note in that berries don't do anything, only collect them for bragging rights. And then when you end the game with like no berries, everyone hates your pie. It's like there is a difference. You lied to me.
Well, that's the fun thing, right? Is that it says it's friends, and then the thing that it hypothetically does at the end is it impresses your friends or doesn't impress.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay, I never thought of it that way. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That puts a totally different perspective to that. Okay, Psyched. That was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. What even? That was interesting.
Yeah. So Psyched did that little braggy strat last time and it worked, and then this time, well, Karma got paid for it. He did also do the auto scroller skip the screen before, so he's messing around. He's 6B, he's doing the skip, messing around a little bit, having some fun race.
More power to him. Ultimately, more power to him. I can't get over that though, because like as soon as you said impress your friends, that's the. I remember that now. That's really funny.
Yeah. So it is fun because it's like originally, right? You think of it as like what they're saying is, oh, it doesn't mean anything. But what it is saying is that it does impress your friends because ultimately you end up getting these friends you made along the way, and then you bake a pie for them. And depending on how many berries collect, it can really impress them or not. Where did Psyched get the third berry? That I don't know.
There are a couple of berries, I believe, that are just naturally close to the route that you take.
Yes, often you'll get two.
Yeah, there are two that you get for sure because they're just in your way. If you were to avoid them, then it would actually cost you time. Nice first try door skip from Psyched. No issues whatsoever on those.
But yeah, I haven't been paying enough attention. Don't let anyone know that. To know exactly where the...
Yeah, I didn't notice which one he would have accidentally grabbed. I have noticed through all the runs that I've watched that there are a couple that are just close to where Madeline ends up anyway. So that may have just been it. Or also just like making kind of a weird movement bobble and ending up accidentally hitting one.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. So yeah, there's definitely still a decent time discrepancy here between the two of them. It seems like it may have widened here in Summit, as this would Give Psych the 3-0, which would give him the 4 points and put him in that 8th spot to potentially be one of those 4 people going race.
Yep, and with Scrublord just now reaching the summit as Psyched is already at checkpoint 19, it's going to take some pretty major execution errors for Scrublord to take this final point away from Psyched.
Definitely.
And yeah, speaking of pace, once again, I will be commentating the Celeste finals that those top 4 will be into, along with FC Racer, who is an exceptional commentator. And if you're anywhere close to the Laurel, Maryland area, I just highly encourage you to look up pace registration and try to go. It's going to be an awesome event for sure.
Oh yeah.
Exclamation point pace in the chat for more information in case you don't know about it at the moment. What is Psyched having so many issues with these spikes at the moment? What is happening?
Yeah, and this flag 13 is a big one, so it's definitely given Scrublord a chance to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, Scrublord at flag 17. Psyched having that issue there. Okay, he's able to jump his way up to that next checkpoint. That was pretty close.
Yeah, I thought he might run out of stamina there, but he managed not to.
And a little bit of a monka from missing one of those checkpoints. So that's at 7. Scrublord is fairly close. Scrublord taking that death that is going to pretty well prevent him from really catching up. But then again, we do have that kind of difficult flower or feather section coming up here.
Yeah.
It could cause Psyched some issues. And, you know, okay, those binoculars were a really nice little feature, but I don't know that I ever really used them a whole lot. And especially, like, I don't feel like I ever really tried planning any route out. Ooh, okay, taking the spike death on checkpoint 3.
Yeah, I always got a little overwhelmed by them. The nice thing, I don't know if you ever actually ended up looking at that binocular, but it takes you all the way up to the summit and gives you like a tiny little cutscene. So if you're gonna take any binoculars, take those.
I don't know if I ever actually saw that, so I'll have to be sure to do that whenever I get to Summit on that 100% playthrough.
Yeah, go for it. As Psych takes the win there with the 31-14. So we saw him sort of 30-05, 30-28 or so, and then the 31-14 as we see Scrublord pulling on in, getting to flag 1 here. It's only ended up being about a 20-25 second difference.
Yep, and just nice races all 3 times, and especially kind of an interesting little twist on this 3rd race from Psyched with that 6B.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can get these guys in for an interview, especially Psyched, to just kind of talk about well, here he is, not gonna have to question. Psyched, how are you feeling, especially after that nice little 6B edition?
Hey, feeling pretty good actually.
Yeah, so
I
what
was
was-
kind of worried about this match because I think the loser of this match does not advance to the next round in the tournament.
Yeah, so with your triple win here, you have accumulated 4 extra points, which puts you at a total of 15, which knocks Moose out of 8th place and replaces him with you. So that officially does put you in the playoffs. Unfortunately, Scrublord will not be moving on to the playoffs, but still stellar gameplay here. Really unfortunate about those, especially in that second race, the demo dash issues. What was kind of going through your
the
head?
Bubs shop issues? Yeah.
Oh, I was sorry.
Yeah, I know what you
mean.
mean. Yeah, I had a lot of issues there. I lost like 40 seconds, I think, in Temple alone. Except for
Yeah, that second temple was more like a 5A only time.
yeah, that was like a 4:28, which is even a bad 5A. but the rest was okay. Otherwise, I wouldn't have won, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
pretty happy about that one.
yeah. So what was your decision making ultimately in going B instead of 6A?
Actually, I was thinking about going for 6B because my 6As were pretty bad.
Oh, okay.
Then I said no, that would be stupid in a race setting. And then I got to the point where I had to decide, and then I just said, "Fuck it, yeah, let's go for it." Sorry for that one.
It's
Right.
no worries. It slips out occasionally, and I mean that
Yeah.
certainly seems to have been the attitude going for something like 6B mid race. But it was
Yeah.
exciting. Honestly, I've never seen 6B casually, so it was exciting to see.
Yeah,
Now,
6B is really fun. I mean, casually and in the speed run, but it's pretty hard compared to 6A actually.
It is. And so we saw 6B. We also, Scrublord, from you, I really appreciated getting to see some of the. We did see one successful Ridge auto scroller skip. I saw you
Oh
go
wait,
for some
you
of the
went
other
for
ones.
Yeah, I did. My sucked. Okay.
Oh, you're here as well. I didn't know that.
I lost so much time on the second interview.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just like I felt like I had to go for it, and the second time I got it, so I felt fine on that.
Yeah. And
Oh,
you
nice,
were
nice.
close-ish to the other auto scroller skip.
No, I was. I mean, like what matters most is that I could jump after the ultra, and I kind of missed it by a few frames, but yeah.
Wait, for which
that
one
was-
did
that
you
was
go?
quite-
For the first or for the second
I
one?
did the both. I did both of them. I thought, why
Oh,
not?
man. I mean, you grinded them out kind of for the 4A world record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, might as well use that. So you got it. And then take us through a little bit, if you don't mind, with Demo Dash. I know you've had a little bit of a rough history with it. Where are you at with it right now?
Well, I feel like the big problem with me and Demo Dash is that like there's a sort of rhythm to it, and there's just some points where I just don't pick up that rhythm. And during the second race, I noticed I was doing it just a little bit too early, and then like during the third race, I spotted that and did a little later, and that's when I finally got it.
Okay. Yeah. I remember one a while ago where it was probably, you just kind of, it looked like you were jumping in, and it was probably like 30 or 40 times. And now this time you decide, you know what? You recognize at some point in time it just wasn't happening. Just like, I'm just going to go around.
Yeah.
Just dashing her into a wall over and over.
Yeah. Sometimes I just have to opt out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the
Oh,
first
man.
time I had to do that in a GSA race.
That sucks to hear.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunate, but it's stuff like that happens on occasion, especially with a trick that difficult. Now, I remember people mentioning that you don't actually use the demo button. Are you playing on controller or just?
Well,
kind
I
of-
do use a demo button. Oh no, what used to happen is I used to have this really janky demo dash setup, which involves just jumping at the wall and hoping that
Oh
it
yeah,
works.
I remember that. That
Yeah.
was...
I
mean, it was
finally picked up
fast,
the
but-
setup, and I mean it works a lot better, but I just sometimes it just doesn't get it at all. I feel like I get it more often than not though.
Stuff like that just happens with any trick that precise, as we were kind of talking about. And kind of, I'd be interested to kind of get your view on this. We, after that sort of stuff was happening, we were talking about how in really any speedrunning game, there's a lot of that putting out fires where you are working up some strats and get them really consistent, and then all of a sudden something that has worked for you for months just stops working. Do you kind of feel like that's like what was happening in the middle of this race was just one of those situations popping up with demo?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like for me, if I'm playing well, then I'll keep playing well. But like once I mess up, then I have to take a few seconds to like really pick up the pace again. And
I see.
I feel like that's what happened there. And like any time I messed up during my runs.
For sure.
All right. Well, again, GG's to both of you guys, and congrats to Sight for that booting Moose out of the top 8 for that playoff spot.
Thanks.
And
Yeah, GG, man.
Yeah, GG.
and Espel, if do you have any other questions for these guys before we let them go?
No, I'm all good. Thanks, you guys. It was fun to watch both of you.
Yeah, thanks for commentating.
Oh, our pleasure. Absolutely. Now, if you are a fan of Celeste, don't go anywhere. I don't care if you have the most important plans of your life. We're about to have TGH versus Flutterby. That's going to be a race to see. I really
Yeah,
wish that I could be in the
definitely.
booth for that one. But going to go ahead and take a little bit of break. And in case you're not able to see that for whatever reason, thanks so much for stopping by and watching this Celeste race. And we hope to see y'all again here at GSA. Again, I'm Electric, and Espel, it has been a pleasure co-comming with you.
Yeah, same with you.
And
I-
one last time, GG's to our runners.
Yeah.
Thank you.